Mark and Isabella seemed to have it all. A beautiful home, two wonderful kids, and a love story that their friends envied. Mark worked as a software engineer, a job that often demanded long hours, but he did it all for his family. Isabella, a freelance graphic designer, had the flexibility to work from home, a setup that seemed perfect for managing the household and raising their children. To Mark, she was the anchor of his life, the person he trusted implicitly, the woman he'd built his entire world around. Their life was a carefully constructed masterpiece, or so he believed. The first crack in this perfect picture appeared subtly. It started with Isabella's phone. Once left casually on the kitchen counter, it was now always with her, screen down or tucked away in her purse. When Mark once playfully reached for it to look up a recipe, she snatched it back with a sharpness that startled him. "I've got it," she'd said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. He brushed it off. "We all need our privacy," he told himself. But a small, cold seed of doubt had been planted. Then came the late nights with clients. As a freelancer, Isabella's schedule could be unpredictable, but suddenly these late nights became a weekly, then bi-weekly occurrence. She'd come home smelling faintly of a perfume he didn't recognize, her explanations for the long hours vague and rushed. "Just a demanding project," she'd say, avoiding his gaze. "You know how it is." Mark, ever the trusting husband, would nod, kiss her forehead, and try to ignore the gnawing feeling in his gut. He was busy, stressed with his own work, and the last thing he wanted was to create conflict where there might be none. He chose to believe her. Trust was the foundation of their marriage, and he wasn't ready to let that crumble. The turning point came on a Tuesday. Mark's project at work wrapped up unexpectedly early, and he decided to surprise Isabella and the kids. He imagined her delight. Maybe they could order pizza and have a family movie night. He walked into the house, calling out her name, but was met with silence. The kids were with their grandparents for the afternoon, but Isabella was supposed to be in her home office, working on that demanding project. He checked her office. Empty. Her car was gone. He called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. A wave of unease washed over him. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe she ran out for groceries or to pick up art supplies. But the story didn't sit right. Driven by an impulse he couldn't explain, he logged into their shared tablet, hoping to find a clue, a message, anything. He opened the location-sharing app they used for emergencies. He'd never checked it before, never felt the need to. His heart pounded in his chest as the map loaded. A small icon with Isabella's picture pulsed on the screen. It wasn't at a client's office or a design studio. It was at a residential address on the other side of town, an address he had never seen before. For a moment he just stared. His mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. A friend's house? A new co-working space she hadn't told him about? Denial is a powerful shield. He decided to drive there. He had to know. He needed to see with his own eyes that his fears were just a product of an overactive imagination. The drive felt like an eternity, each red light a test of his fraying patience. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. He kept telling himself it was all a misunderstanding. He pulled up across the street from the address. It was a modern, sleek townhouse, nothing like their cozy suburban home. And there, parked in the driveway, was Isabella's car. Mark's breath hitched. He felt a profound, gut-wrenching sickness spread through him. He sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, his mind a chaotic storm of denial and dawning horror. Then the front door of the townhouse opened. Isabella walked out, laughing, her head thrown back in a way he hadn't seen in years. And her hand was intertwined with another man's. He was tall, well-dressed, and he leaned down to kiss her, a long, lingering kiss that was anything but friendly. They looked comfortable, familiar, like a couple. As they stood there, a young boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, ran out of the house and hugged Isabella's legs, shouting, "Mommy!" Mark felt the world tilt on its axis. "Mommy?" The word echoed in his skull, a deafening roar. This wasn't just an affair. This was a whole other life. Another man. Another child. His Isabella, the mother of his children, was also a mother to someone else's child. The trust he had placed in her, the life they had built, the future he had envisioned. It all shattered into a million irreparable pieces right there, on that quiet, tree-lined street. He wasn't just betrayed. He was erased. He drove home in a daze, the world a blur of colors and shapes. He couldn't feel his hands or his feet. The only thing he felt was a hollow, cavernous emptiness where his heart used to be. He walked into the house they had shared, a house that now felt like a stage set for a play he was no longer a part of. Every photo on the wall, every shared memory was now tainted with the poison of this devastating lie. He had trusted her with his life, and she had used that trust to build another one. A secret world where he didn't exist. When Isabella came home that evening, she found Mark sitting in the dark, surrounded by family photo albums. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He just looked at her, his eyes empty of the love she had taken for granted, and asked a single, quiet question that held the weight of their entire broken marriage. Who is he? The charade was over. The perfect picture was destroyed, and all that remained were the jagged edges of a life built on an unimaginable betrayal. The confrontation was quieter than you might imagine. There was no shouting, no throwing things, just a heavy, suffocating silence broken by Mark's hollow questions and Isabella's choked-up, pathetic excuses. She had met the other man, Alex, years ago, during a brief separation they'd had before getting married. She'd broken it off to be with Mark, or so she'd told him, but the connection lingered. When their first child was born and Mark was consumed by work, she felt lonely and reached out to Alex. What started as a coffee turned into a parallel life. She had meticulously compartmentalized her worlds, a master of deception. Mark felt like he was listening to a stranger. The woman he loved, the woman he thought he knew better than anyone, was a phantom. The pain was immense, but beneath it, a cold resolve began to form. He couldn't stay. He couldn't look at her without seeing the betrayal. For the sake of his children, and for his own sanity, he had to leave. The process was messy and heartbreaking. He moved out, finding a small apartment that felt sterile and empty. The hardest part was explaining it to the kids, trying to shield them from the ugliness of it all without lying. He just said, "Mommy and Daddy need some space to figure things out." The days that followed were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and navigating the emotional wreckage. Mark leaned heavily on his friends and family, who rallied around him, providing a much-needed support system. He started therapy, a space where he could unpack the trauma without judgment. He learned that Isabella's betrayal wasn't a reflection of his worth, but of her own brokenness. It was a slow, painful process, but with each session, he began to reclaim a piece of himself. He focused on his kids, pouring all the love and stability he could into their lives. He became the anchor they now needed more than ever. Slowly but surely, Mark began to rebuild. He rediscovered old hobbies he'd let slide, started working out, and reconnected with friends. He was healing. One day, sitting in a park watching his children play, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. The scars were still there, but they were no longer gaping wounds. They were reminders of what he had survived. He had faced the ultimate betrayal and walked through the fire, emerging not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and with a renewed appreciation for honesty and the simple, genuine love of his children. His old life was gone, but a new, more authentic one was just beginning. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more content. Your support means the world. Take care.